tomorrow was supposed to be the day that there was going to be a tax on everything coming into the United States from Mexico, 25%. I'm sorry, a tariff, which would have raised billions upon billions of dollars and made it irrelevant for us to have an income tax, according to Donald Trump. Supposedly, there's going to be a 25% tariff on Canada's goods starting tomorrow, and a 10% tariff on China. Now, anybody who knows, has even like a rudimentary and barely sophisticated understanding of tariffs, knows that largely the point of tariffs are to help grow a domestic industry, right? Like, I want to help us get a competitive advantage. This country's lapping us in X. Let's just say computer processors or solar panels or whatever it is.
So we'll make those more expensive by putting a tariff on the foreign version of that so that the U.S. made one is cheaper. So people buy it.
And so people buy it. And if the tariff raises a lot of money, that means that people are not buying the U.S. version and the tariff has failed. So you cannot rely on it to raise a lot of money. And if it does, then the tariff is not working. If you do it on every single product from a country, then you are not targeting it towards an industry. And all it will do is create inflation across the board, because when whatever it is, I don't know, jungle gyms that we buy from Canada go up by 25% in cost. If you produce jungle gyms in the United States, what you do is you raise your prices by 20%. Mm-hmm. You can still undercut the other one, but you get that. Now, the other thing that they are doing on top of this is de minimis. There are exceptions for products that are sent by people under a certain amount, or if it's presents, or you get somebody to buy, or you order some, let's say, drugs from Canada, legal drugs, or you purchase something from Canada, like I'm just buying a whatever it is, like a specific type of saw or some maple syrup or whatever it is. Those, because it's such an individual sale, it's not like a wholesale type of thing, are also carved out generally from any type of tariffs regime. In this instance, not the case. So that syrup that you want to give as a gift, forget about it. That's going to go up 25% too. Now, all this has been in the making, and apparently Trump has already backed off the Mexico one for some sort of theatrical performance by Scheinbaum.
Which,
but here
credit
is
to her, by the way, for that being the only extraction so far, is that she'll do this theater of sending her National Guard to their northern border.
That's a repeat of 4 years ago.
Yeah. Snarkorsky also raises the thing, tariffs on everything on an entire country are often called sanctions. And it's just how extreme they are, really. But here is Trump telling reporters, this was on yesterday, that he's willing to cause a little short-term pain for Americans.
No, I'm not concerned. We may have short-term a little pain, and people understand that. But long-term, the United States has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world. We have deficits with almost every country. Not every country, but almost. And we're going to change it. It's been unfair. That's why we owe $36 trillion. We have deficits with everybody. We help everybody. We've been helping everybody for years. And to be honest, I don't think they appreciate it. So we're going to change that. We're going to change it fast. We're going to make America great again. We have to focus on our country. We have tremendous potential.
All right, pause. We don't need to hear anymore. He seems to be conflating with trade deficits with our budget deficits, and sort of like moshing them together in some weird way. Mm-hmm. But understand, when he talks about we are going to experience short-term pain, by we, what he really means is essentially I don't know, 70, 80% of the country. Because the percentage of wealth or income for a wealthy person who buys a tomato that may be 20% more, or an avocado that may be 20 or 25% more, or a 2x4 that may be 20 or 25% more, the percentage of their wealth or income that is spent on that is far less than your average American. So understand, this is a tax, and because it is essentially a sales tax. Yep. It is going to hit low income, working class, middle class people far more than the top 20%, 10%, 0.01% in this country.
In the same way that sales taxes do generally, right? Which is what you just described, which is that if there's a sales tax of X percent on certain items, which there is in most parts of the country.
Soda, for instance.
Yeah, right. So if you have more money, if there's a percentage tax on that soda, it's less percentage of your income that's going towards that increase because you have more, even though that product, it costs the same for everybody. This is Trump's attempt to say that, he's becoming more efficient and cutting into our deficit by not raising taxes on the wealthy. This is all this is. It's just another workaround so that we can continue going down this road that we have been since the 70s of slashing taxes for the wealthy and exacerbating income inequality. And all this is going to do, if he's successful with it, is do the exact same thing. But it's also a shakedown, right? Like, he got the PR that he wanted from Scheinbaum, and she has an 80% approval rating in Mexico, so she can kind of flex on him. And we'll see what happens now if he's able to actually implement this. But that's part of this.
What's he going to get from Canada?
I know, but that
10,000 troops on the border in Canada.
I mean, they are our largest trading partners. Like, in terms of food, Mexico is the largest supplier of fruit and vegetables to the United States. Canada leads in exports of grain, livestock, meats, poultry, and more, let alone the oil from Canada, let alone the lumber from Canada. Trump, when he was in office the first time, signed trade deals with Mexico and Canada that he is now violating as he gets into office for the second time. In order to do his mafia styles of leadership, which is just I'll threaten them to shake them down for something else I want.
Here's Kristi Noem with, I'm not sure I fully understand what she's talking about. She may not
dressed
know.
as a cowboy.
Yes, new outfit. She had the Border Patrol outfit on last week on Laura Ingraham.
Oh,
You can find her dressed as a nurse in a campaign ad.
No, she's doing, Kristi Noem's trying to do everybody in the Village people over the course of her first month in office.
Trump would love that.
Here she is on NBC News with Kirsten Welker.
Madam Secretary, economists all across the board are warning that ultimately tariffs lead to higher prices for consumers, and that these tariffs in particular could see prices increase on food, electronics, and cars. The president himself...
Pause it. Now, we just talked about this. Why does tariffs increase the price of things? Because the tariff is essentially, no, not essential. It's literally a tax. If the thing comes across the border, you need to pay a 25% tax on it, and the consumer pays for that. So it raises prices. But it also is inflationary for every other product in this country that would compete with that. So if Sam's selling tomatoes and tomatoes cost 25 cents more or 25% more coming in from Mexico, I could actually raise the price of my tomatoes by 20%, still be a discount, and that's what's going to happen. But Kristi Noem doesn't seem to understand this.
Would see prices increase on food, electronics, and cars. The president himself acknowledging this morning these tariffs could cause, quote, some pain. How is this move helping President Trump fulfill his campaign promise to lower prices?
You know, you've seen the president take action already this week with Colombia, and you saw Colombia react in a very positive way that was good for everyone involved. Canada, Mexico, other countries have the opportunity to do exactly the same. So we have a strong leader. He has laid down exactly what he is going to do and what the consequences are. I encourage their leadership teams to get on board and to make sure that they're not pushing up prices. If prices go up, it's because of other people's reactions to America's laws. And that's what President Trump is doing. He is making sure that we're not picking and choosing winners and losers, that the law applies equally.
What? I mean, there is a world where I can imagine we have a top cabinet official who's asked this question, who is just there to be a lapdog for Donald Trump, and comes up with a comprehensible, and I would disagree with it, but arranges her words in such a way that they actually mean something. But he is raising the prices. He is imposing the tax. What another country could do to react to it. I mean, if they did nothing, if they did absolutely nothing, the prices would rise by 25% of those goods coming in. Again, there's domestic inflationary pressure. The only thing that they could do in response that would also be problematic for the U.S. is to say, oh, well, we're no longer going to buy your goods, which would then be problematic for the producers of those goods here. The idea that she goes on to say that Donald Trump does not choose winners and losers, it's literally 180 degrees from and I have no problem with the idea of government picking winners and losers, because it does that all the time. But putting a 25% tax on some products in a market and not others is literally the definition of picking winners and losers. Just go back a little bit, because it's just stunning that these people are in charge of anything. Like, I am nervous just at the idea that she may have put that hat on herself with her abilities, as she's explaining right now.
She may have been kicked by a horse.
That they're not pushing up prices. If prices go up, it's because of other people's reactions to America's laws. And that's what President Trump is doing. He is making sure that we're not picking and choosing winners and losers, that the law applies equally to everybody, American citizens. It applies to those who are here illegally, and our world leaders across the country and across the world. They can help us. Or
our world leaders across the country?
In the Iraq.
Oh, she's just trying to get out of this.
And such as. I'm sorry.
You know, one good way to focus on America first is to stop all this bullshit about saying Africa is confiscating, or South Africa is confiscating white people's land, and maybe like pass health care or something.
I will concede that I didn't realize just how stupid Kristi Noem is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just like she was never asked a question that was sort of like so direct. But that is an impressive. I mean, you're head of the Department of Homeland Security. You may get a question if you go on the Sunday television about the tariffs that are starting in 2 days that are ostensibly, at least in terms of Mexico, about the border. Should remind you, all this stuff about fentanyl.
Oh, yeah.
Virtually no fentanyl gets in across the Canadian border. This is according to experts. The number of fentanyl or just ODs in this country is down now at a number. I mean, any ODs are a problem, and largely, at least the ODs we've been seeing over the past decade have been a function of getting people addicted to prescription painkillers and then them not having access to it. But the number of ODs in this country is down now to about 90,000 annually, which is lower than it's been in 10 years.
And that was a part of the Biden administration's like efforts to essentially expand access to treatments for the opioid epidemic, including like medication. They eliminated a waiver that expanded it to like from 130,000 up to 1.8 million people for prescription medication to help with opioids, et cetera. I think they also lifted other, moratoriums on
I wonder how much Narcan,
overdose.
Just like Narcan
for
thing, too.
Narcan.
There's
yeah.
also a thing where when these sorts of things spread through populations, before we can realize what's going on, they kill a lot more people, and then society just generally has a slightly better understanding of
I will tell you, my daughter at college, they are very sensitive to this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, I got them testing strips and stuff like that. But they're very sensitive to it. But
It's just a fear-mongering object for Republicans at this point.
hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.